Welcome. This is my presentation titled Death, Man, and the Female Figure. Death, masculinity, and the female figure play major roles within the context of Aeschylus's Agamemnon. The story of Agamemnon gets to the point rather quickly, involving the long-standing familial violence which plagues the house of Tantalus, son of Zeus and Pluto and great-grandfather to Agamemnon. The tale ends with the death of Agamemnon and his concubine Cassandra at the hands of his wife Clytemnestra. Death is a prominent theme in Agamemnon as well as the rest of the Oresteia. It follows the family tree to the bitter end until Clytemnestra's murder at the hands of her son Orestes. Masculinity and the female figure are portrayed as opposing forces, often one being the cause of the downfall of the other. The first work, The Sacrifice of Iphigenia by Giovanni Battista Tiepolo, portrays the sacrifice of Iphigenia at the hands of her father Agamemnon, and the other picture, Clytemnestra by Pierre Narcisse Guérin, portrays Agamemnon's murder. Tiepolo painted a vivid picture of Iphigenia's sacrifice. Tiepolo lightened areas where he draws the attention of the observer. A few areas Tiepolo draws the observer's attention is to the ship Artemis and Iphigenia. Here we can see that he is drawing the connection between the circumstances of Iphigenia's sacrifice. Interestingly, Agamemnon in this particular painting fades into the background through the darker tones the artist chose to portray his character. Tiepolo presents Agamemnon as a background character relative to his daughter Iphigenia. The Sacrifice of Iphigenia by Giovanni Battista Tiepolo the style used was Rococo, year 1770, and the type of medium used was oil. A few different areas of Tiepolo's painting highlight some important aspects of Iphigenia's sacrifice that are shared along with Aeschylus. The painting is much more in tune with Aeschylus' portrayal while offering a bit more in the form of Artemis's appearance. Rather than being an invisible entity, Artemis is a physical character in the painting. First, we'll look at Artemis and the ship. Go ahead and highlight that. There's the ship, and we have Artemis. Agamemnon, and I call Apollo, god of healing, to stop Artemis delaying the fleet in her demand for another sacrifice, one which violates all human law. Tiepolo lightens the area around the ship and Artemis to emphasize the events that are occurring. Artemis is preventing the Greeks from sailing to Troy for war. Looking closer, you can see that the seas are not calm and the sails are disheveled. In the upper portion of the painting, Artemis is pictured with Cupids and her stag. She is reaching out her hand as if to show that she is appeased with her offering and will take it. Artemis is seemingly accepting Iphigenia. The sacrifice is more of an offering than the death of a virgin, by having Artemis reach out her hand and Iphigenia seemingly accepting of her fate. The situation seems to be one of acceptance rather than a forced situation. Next, let's focus on Agamemnon. Right here. Agamemnon, how can I just leave this fleet and let my fellow warriors down? Their passionate demand for sacrifice to calm the winds lies within their rights, even the sacrifice of virgin blood. So be it, all may be all. Tiepolo painted Agamemnon in an interesting manner. Agamemnon does not stand out in his position in the background. He is clearly not the focus of the painting. His garbs do not make him appear to be a king. Instead, he looks much more like an old merchant. Agamemnon's gait shows urgency to appeal to Artemis as his head is facing towards her, as if he is attempting to draw her attention to his actions. Now let's focus on the weapon and the focal point of the painting, Iphigenia. So here have the dagger, and then we have Iphigenia right here. Chorus. So Agamemnon steeled his heart to make his own daughter the sacrifice, an offering for the Achaean fleet so he could prosecute the war waged to avenge the woman Helen. The color of Agamemnon's dagger has it fading even more into the background than that of Agamemnon. It is not imposing. One reason could be because, like Agamemnon, the dagger and the sacrifice is not entirely the focus of the painting. Instead, Iphigenia and her relation to the situation is the focus. Iphigenia, positioned in the center, relative to what's going on around her, her color is much more vibrant, which could be due to her purity as a virgin, but also because she is innocent compared to those around her. Tiepolo also places her on a pedestal, further emphasizing her significance. And then we have the last bit of detail to cover. We have the women right here around Iphigenia, and then we have the soldiers. There are soldiers placed at different posts surrounding the event that is taking place. The same goes for the different women who are around the altar. The attention of the soldiers are drawn more towards Artemis rather than Iphigenia. Like Agamemnon, the soldiers are much more concerned with appeasing Artemis than the sacrifice of Iphigenia. The women, on the other hand, are much more upset by the sacrifice taking place and do not hold as much concern for Artemis than the rest. It is possible that they are Iphigenia's maids and cared for her well-being much more than everyone else around her. Tiepolo's portrayal of the sacrifice of Iphigenia is pretty spot on with Aeschylus's version. Essentially, Agamemnon is more concerned with the Trojan War than the well-being of his daughter. Accordingly, Pavlo suggests that Iphigenia's sacrifice occurred because she received a letter from Agamemnon allowing her to appear at Aulis as a bride. The circumstances of her placement with Agamemnon during the Trojan campaign comes down to her position as a bride, yet she was subsequently sacrificed. In essence, her marriage was not important and acted as more of a ploy to get her on the ship. Tiepolo and Aeschylus play heavily into the domino effect leading to the situation at which the characters find themselves in. Finley suggests that Agamemnon is a lonely figure who understands that he is alienated from his family and position as king. In the painting, Tiepolo paints Agamemnon in a manner that shows readiness rather than hesitation in committing the sacrifice. It is possible Agamemnon carries some weight from his actions because of his rather short and cold interaction with Clytemnestra upon his arrival home. All those things you said, don't puff me up with such female honors, or grovel there before me babbling tributes like some barbarian. Don't invite envy to cross my path by strewing it with cloth. Next, let's take a look at the other painting. Guérin's painting posits a different version of events surrounding the death of Agamemnon than Aeschylus's portrayal. The largest and most significant difference is the hesitation of Clytemnestra and the position of Aegisthus. Let's look a bit more into Guérin's portrayal and how it differs from Aeschylus's version. Clytemnestra by Pierre Narcisse Guérin was created in the year 1870, style neoclassicism, and the type of medium used was oil. Okay, first let's take a look at Aegisthus. Chorus. Old violent aggression loves to generate new troubles among evil men. Soon or late, when it's fated to be born, new violence springs forth. Guérin places Aegisthus' hands in a very specific manner. We have his right hand on Clytemnestra's shoulder, and his left hand is pointed towards a sleeping Agamemnon. Add these two factors with his facial expression and posture, and it is as though he is pushing Clytemnestra to murder her husband. Aegisthus is a devil on the shoulder for Clytemnestra, who talks her into committing the murder. Now let's look at the center of the art piece, Clytemnestra. Clytemnestra. I stand now where I struck, where I achieved what I set out to do. I did all this. I won't deny the fact. I stabbed him twice. He gave out 2 groans. Then, as his limbs went limp, I hit again, a 3rd blow. Clytemnestra's positioning is intriguing because her overall posture shows hesitation. The dagger in her right hand is faced backwards towards Aegisthus, further showing hesitation as it is not in a ready position for stabbing Agamemnon. As Aegisthus is pushing her, she is pushing back toward him. Her eyes show a sense of shock and lack of conviction compared to those of Aegisthus. In the background, there is Agamemnon sleeping. Clytemnestra. By the justice I exacted for my child, by Adi, goddess of destruction, by the fury to whom I offer up this man. In the play, Agamemnon had returned home after the war when he was murdered. Guerin shows a vulnerable Agamemnon lying asleep in his bed. His chest is open, as if to provide a clear view of where he will be stabbed. Behind him lay his armor and weapons. It is possible that he is not lying in his marriage room. Instead, he may be sleeping in his own private quarters. The relationship between Clytemnestra and Agamemnon was significantly strained due to the sacrifice of Iphigenia, the Trojan War, and the arrival of Cassandra upon Agamemnon's return. Clytemnestra is strong in Aeschylus's representation, but weaker in Guerin's. Aeschylus portrays Clytemnestra as making the decision and committing the murder on her own with her own hands. Aeschylus makes her a much stronger and determined character than Guerin's painting portrays. Guerin highlights a much weaker side of Clytemnestra, who has to rely on the words and pressure from Aegisthus. In Guerin's painting, Aegisthus seems to have more power in his relationship with Clytemnestra, but is just as weak since he needs to rely on her to murder Agamemnon. In Guerin's painting, it seems that each character's vulnerability is placed on display. However, Aeschylus focuses much more on the strengths of the characters. According to Avezu, in Aeschylus's portrayal, Clytemnestra unveils the truth, reporting the exact sequence of the actions leading to the accomplishment of Agamemnon's murder. This differs significantly to Guerin's portrayal, who paints a rather meek version of Clytemnestra. Tiepolo and Guerin's paintings portray the different events which occur in the beginning and the end of Aeschylus's Agamemnon. Tiepolo's portrayal was a bit more in line with the Aeschylus's version, not diverging too greatly from the original depiction of Iphigenia's sacrifice. On the other hand, Guerin portrayed each character as vulnerable, contrary to their depiction by Aeschylus. Death was a theme of both of the paintings, both sharing the vulnerabilities of the characters who will die. Tiepolo was more subtle with his depiction of the sacrifice, painting the dagger and Agamemnon in a manner that placed their figures in the background. Contrary-wise, Guerin made it apparent to the viewer that Agamemnon was going to die, drawing attention to his open chest and the two characters behind his death. The diverging masculine and feminine figures were intertwined like opposing forces. Agamemnon sacrificed his daughter because Artemis, a female goddess, was threatening his military campaign. Clytemnestra killed Agamemnon because he killed their daughter, and from Guerin's point of view, she was pressured by Aegisthus to kill Agamemnon. The cycle of death converges with the interactions between the masculine and feminine figures. Thank you very much for viewing my presentation. I hope you have a great day.